It's still fresh in my mind the first time my dad took me to the movies to see Mortal Kombat. I was only 13 years old at the time. In the UK at the time, you had to be at least 15 years old to see the play, so my dad lied to the ticket seller to get me in. That was one of the nicest things my dad ever did for me. I can still remember sitting in the dark theater and feeling my heart race with each dance beat. When Liu Kang throws Reptile into the statue, his body changes and a voice calls out, "Reptile." That's a moment I'll never forget. The whole theater blew up. That's when I and a lot of other Mortal Kombat fans first thought, "That's cool." There was no doubt that I would remember that moment for a long time. But it wasn't until I got older and looked back that I realized Mortal Kombat 1995 wasn't just thrilling to watch on screen, much stranger things happened behind the scenes. For a long time, Hollywood movies based on video games were almost always a disaster. But this one broke the curse. A well-known figure like Johnny Cage came from a dream that was never finished. And there's one thing that not many people would expect. A legendary figure like Reptile was added at the last minute out of desperation. They were not even in the original script. It didn't end there. There were fights that really hurt people, and the casting choices felt like a survival game before the movie even started. Today, we're going to open up the darkest and stranger doors behind the scenes of Mortal Kombat 1995 once more. 20. The video game movie that broke Hollywood's curse. Do you remember how you felt? As you walked into a movie theater in the mid-1990s and saw the words from a popular video game, you couldn't help but think of something you had thought before. Another bad show is here. At that time, movies based on video games were almost always a failure. People didn't understand Super Mario Bros. A lot of people made fun of Double Dragon. People laughed at Street Fighter, but it made money. A rule had been set in Hollywood that games could not be turned into good movies. In the middle of all of that, Mortal Kombat was born. No one was ready for anything. No one thought it was true. A lot of people in the business thought it was just another risk that would end in the same old crash. Big companies didn't work on the project because they saw it as too risky. One person, though, didn't agree. Lawrence Kasanoff, the producer, thought that Mortal Kombat could do what other game movies hadn't been able to do: keep the spirit of the original game. Not make the game more polite, not turn it into a safe family movie, and not make fun of where it came from. He thought that people were interested in what they had played. A deadly competition with clear characters and fights that looked like they happened in real life. When the movie came out in 1995, something that didn't seem possible happened. At the box office, Mortal Kombat didn't just make it, it won. The movie made a lot more money than anyone thought it would. People flocked to theaters, the music played nonstop on MTV, and it was the first time in Hollywood history that a movie based on a video game was hailed as a success. Not because it was perfect or got better, but because Mortal Kombat showed something very important. It wasn't necessary for video game movies to be bad. The movie made history in the history of famous movies just by breaking that curse. 19. It was Jean-Claude Van Damme's unfinished dream to play Johnny Cage. Jean-Claude Van Damme is a name that you may already know if you were born in the late 1980s or early 1990s. The Split kicks the strong, sweaty VHS tapes of Bloodsport or Kickboxer rewound until the tape was worn out. Van Damme was the face of martial arts for a lot of people for a whole generation. Not many people know that Mortal Kombat did not always look the way it does now. The first thing that Ed Boon and John Tobias worked on together was a fighting game based on Jean-Claude Van Damme. Midway wanted to scan him and make him the main character of an arcade game. In this very 1990s dream, an action star walked right off the big screen and into the arcade machine. But the talks broke down. Van Damme didn't agree. The project failed, and Johnny Cage was born a vain movie star who turned into a fighter. He was flashy and self-centered, and his moves and attitude were based on Van Damme's on-screen persona. It was both an honor and a joke about the business that only people who worked there could fully get. In a strange twist, Van Damme was offered the part of Johnny Cage in the Mortal Kombat movie but turned it down to play in Street Fighter. 2 times, a figure born from his shadow got away from him. However, events changed, and in the end, Johnny Cage belonged to Lyndon Ashby. It's not a star name, but it fits amazingly well. 18. The woman fighter Sonya Blade doesn't have a stunt double. Remember Sonya Blade from back then? The cold look when looking at Kano. The joint locks in a clean, firm way. The upright position, where you never take a step back in Mortal Kombat. Sonya was different not because of her outfit or the special effects she used. It was clear that this character was hurting but would not give up. And that feeling wasn't doing anything. Bridget Wilson Sampras did all of her own acts and wouldn't use a stunt double, not even for the most difficult close combat scenes. There was real physical touch with every fall, hold, and hit. Effects didn't protect her, only her willpower did. Wilson was called in because of an emergency when Cameron Diaz had to pull out because she broke her wrist. There wasn't much time to get ready. She worked out while shooting, but then she hurt her shoulder on set. The crew and doctors told Wilson to stop, but she shook her head. She changed how she moved on her own, clenched her teeth through the pain, and kept filming to finish the scene. Not because she was careless, but because she wouldn't give up the part. Everyone on the team admired how strong they were. Not because she could handle pain well, but because she looked out for the character until the end. Because of this, Sonya Blade on screen wasn't smooth or perfect, she was tough, unbending, and so real that it was impossible to fake her. And maybe that's why Sonya Blade became a hero for a whole generation of Mortal Kombat fans. She was the first female fighter. Someone created in a game who will always be remembered for getting hurt in the game and the strong will of the woman behind her. 17. Van Damme. Not accepted. Things changed with Johnny Cage in history. Remember when Johnny Cage first showed up in Mortal Kombat 1995? That isn't how you should enter. No signature blow that would describe him. Just a Hollywood star in sunglasses who talks more than he fights. He walks into the competition feeling proud, but real warriors treat him like a joke right away. The movie makes one thing clear right from the start. There is more going on than just Johnny Cage. He's not from there, so he has to show that he fits there. Not many people know this, but Johnny Cage wasn't just modeled after Jean-Claude Van Damme. It's almost like the character was made just for him. Van Damme's DNA can be seen in Cage, from his action star image and flashy bravado to the idea of a movie fighter going into the real world of fighting. Van Damme's work is a mix of tribute and satire aimed at Hollywood in the 1990s. It was real that Van Damme was offered the part of Johnny Cage when the Mortal Kombat movie project started to take shape. But he had another choice at that time. Street Fighter, which is a better-known series around the world and has a bigger budget and less risk. On the other hand, Mortal Kombat was still seen as cruel, strange, and unstable. Van Damme picked Guile, and that was the last thing that kept him from Johnny Cage. The directors had to rethink the character after being turned down. Johnny Cage was no longer a perfect figure fit for a celebrity. He was a figure with a lot of flaws. He is loud, cocky, and easy to ignore, but the fights he survives change him over time. In a strange way, Van Damme's absence made Johnny Cage more human, more believable, and eventually more memorable in Mortal Kombat 1995. 16. Interesting behind-the-scenes facts that not many people know. If you've ever heard Scorpion roar and gotten chills, there's a truth behind it that you'll remember. Ed Boon, who helped make Mortal Kombat, was the one who voiced that line. There is no trained voice actor and no complex processing. It was really him, and a whole generation of gamers will never forget the sound of it. On the other hand, Sub-Zero was given to the character on set who had the most experience with martial arts. The performer had many black belts in different martial arts, which made his moves and strikes look cold, sharp, and precise on screen. He was a great fit for the cold assassin, even back when visual effects weren't very good. Almost happened stories were all over the place. As a child, Jean-Claude Van Damme was asked to play Johnny Cage, but he chose to play Street Fighter instead. This choice made Cage into a parody of Van Damme without meaning to. Steven Spielberg, who likes the game, almost made a cameo. Even though he didn't show up in the movie, the character of the film's director was loosely based on Spielberg as an honor. Tom Cruise even went to the set while he was in Thailand, but he was told to leave right away because he had. It has nothing to do with the movie. The most interesting thing is that Kano's character in the games was changed to be Australian just because Trevor Goddard did such a great job in the movie. There was a small choice made behind the scenes that changed the character's story throughout the whole series. These little things don't make Mortal Kombat a better movie in an artistic sense, but they do make it feel more real, more human, and more memorable, like a tale that was born out of love. A lot of improvising. 15. Mortal Kombat casting a tournament before the cameras rolled. Try to remember how you felt when you watched Mortal Kombat for the first time. The characters' faces look like they were born to be in that arena. But not many people know that the casting process for Fight the Film was already a real survival tournament before Shang Tsung even yelled. It seemed like a Hollywood dream in the early 1990s when the list of candidates was first made public. It was thought that Jean-Claude Van Damme might be good as Johnny Cage. People talked about Tom Cruise and Johnny Depp. Sean Connery was asked to play Raiden. Liu Kang should have gone with Brandon Lee. Cameron Diaz had already started training to play Sonya Blade after being cast. Steven Spielberg liked the game so much that he almost made an appearance as Johnny Cage's director. But one by one, those names disappeared because of injuries, timing problems, worries about their public image, and even tragedies in real life. When the man who was supposed to play Jax died before the movie started, the big stars left one by one, leaving behind a movie that didn't look like it would do well at the box office. The names that stuck around were not the most interesting ones, but they were the right ones. That cruel way of killing enemies saved Mortal Kombat by accident. It wasn't weighed down by star pictures, and the actors didn't have to perform just to look good. Instead, the fights felt real. And sometimes that's more important for a video game movie than having a big name. 14. Do you remember Shang Tsung's look in the movie? Cold, sharp, and full of menace? He didn't act, he walked right out of Outworld. The truth is that he didn't really need to act that way. And more than that, just seeing him made the whole room quiet. His slow, measured voice and the way he made everyone feel like a piece on a board whose fate had already been decided made them feel alone. This wasn't the loud, annoying bad guy from action movies in the 1990s. It was an understated threat. That personality wasn't made on the set. It came about during the casting day. Tagawa Kari walked into the audition room, put on the costume, sat down on a chair, and looked at the team as if he already owned the room. There were no greetings, requests for permission, or changes. He was the only one who mattered in that room. That was Shang Tsung. No need to act or talk about psychology. The character is dangerous because they feel like they are being watched and judged by spiritual authorities. You'll notice that Shang Tsung doesn't rush through the movie if you watch it again. People in the arena have to move to his beat because he stands still. He talks about souls, rules, and the afterlife in a way that sounds ritualistic rather than directly scary. That's why this character is better than the usual tough guy in a video game movie from that time. Shang Tsung wasn't a memorable bad guy because of special effects or violence. Instead, it was because he made people think that their souls had been in Outworld for a long time before they knew it. 13. Do you remember when Liu Kang beat the weird thing and then threw its body into a stone wall? That was the moment when Mortal Kombat really came to life. It changes back into a person in an instant, and a voice with one word can be heard. There were a lot of people who said, yes, this is Mortal Kombat, at that point. This was just a side fight in terms of the plot. But for me, it was the most important dramatic turning point in the whole movie. When it came out before that, Mortal Kombat was still a martial arts fantasy movie with a video game feel. But the second animal shows himself. The movie publicly tells the audience that the game world has come to life, without any awkward introductions or long explanations. The way this scene was set up is what makes it stick in your mind. There is no fancy CGI or dialogue to explain what is happening. There is just a body slamming into a wall and a short pause before the word reptile is spoken. That beat is like getting into a secret fight in a game, quick, powerful, and thrilling. The heavy dance music playing in the background makes that feeling stronger. Liu Kang goes from being a movie character to a stand-in for the player starting a fight, which is exactly what Mortal Kombat fans could not wait for. Today, the effects and routines in the reptile scene look very much like they were made in the 1990s. However, that's what makes it so memorable. There are some things that are wrong with this scene. This scene comes at just the right time and has just the right mood. What Mortal Kombat fans really wanted was for the movie to stop explaining things and start fighting for real. 12. Tom Cruise was once told to leave the set. Tom Cruise wasn't just a movie star in the mid-1990s, he was a Hollywood power. No matter where he went, people were looking at him. Not many people know this, but Cruise was once asked to leave the set of Mortal Kombat. Tom Cruise happened to be in Thailand at the same time that the shooting was going on, so he stopped by the set for no reason. There was no part in the movie, not even a cameo. But having an A-list celebrity on a small, high-stakes set where time was running out quickly caused problems. Word began to get around. People around the set's attention moved from the movie to Tom Cruise being there. This was something that the production could not afford for a project that was already in danger of being thrown out because Hollywood was skeptical of it. The choice was made quietly and clearly. To be nice, Tom Cruise was told to leave the set. There was to be no noise or public disagreement, just a line that had to be kept. Mortal Kombat didn't want to be in the shadow of a famous person. The movie had to do well or not do well on its own. At a time when video game movies were seen as a joke, turning down a name like Tom Cruise showed that Mortal Kombat was determined to stay a small film that wouldn't be eaten up by Hollywood. Think back to the scenes that took place in the underworld: thick fog, wet stone pits, and a feeling of heat that seems to come from the screen. You really do feel this way. Many cast and team members said that filming Mortal Kombat in Thailand was more like a physical endurance test than a movie set because the conditions were so bad. Along with a very busy shooting schedule and constant fight scenes, there was very high heat, high humidity, bugs, and food sickness. They weren't saved by CGI. No rooms with air conditioning in between takes. The actors trained for action scenes and then kept shooting even though they were tired. Some days of filming had to be cancelled because too many people were sick or hurt to keep going. That's why it's not just acting when you see fighters walk onto the arena floor drenched in sweat, breathing hard, and ice tense. The body is being really pushed to its limits. 10. Goro, the beast worth $1 million. Both a miracle and a nightmare for those who work on it. When Goro stepped out of the shadows in Mortal Kombat in 1995, the theaters almost went quiet. His huge body, towering 4 muscular arms, and heavy enough steps seemed to shake the arena itself. No one asked at the time, "Where is the CGI?" Because what was shown on the screen looked way too real to be fake. Goro wasn't made by a machine. It took about 16 people working together to move his arms, chest, head, and facial movements. He was an animatronic that cost close to $1 million. Every time Goro showed up, it was a technical feat, with overheating problems and stopping in the middle of a strike. Behind the camera, the monster kept moving slowly, which made the team very tired. In front of the camera, he embodied the power of Outworld. He made the director and crew work harder than the players did behind the scenes. But it was just that flaw that made Goro into a character that people would never forget. 9. Putting all of their money on animatronics and real stunt actors. These days, a bad kick angle can be changed after the fact. It couldn't in 1995. It was made in a time when a fight scene had to be fake or the movie was over. The directors didn't use CGI, instead, they took the hardest route. There are real stunt acts, real martial artists, and real physical contact. The way Liu Kang spun his kicks, Sonya locked her joints, and Johnny Cage almost missed a dodge was all training and done like in a typical martial arts movie. Direct hits, wire rigs, heavy props, and animatronics. The players' bodies were put at risk in every action scene. That's why Mortal Kombat fights matter. It hurts really, not like in many current action movies where the pain is smooth and empty. Even though the effects look old now, watching it makes you feel like real people are fighting in front of the camera, which is something that CGI has never been able to do. 8. It was given a PG-13 rating even though it was based on the bloodiest game of the 1990s. When you watch Mortal Kombat in 1995, it seems very strange. You can't believe there is almost no blood where you remember seeing a lot of it. There's no way that feeling came from your memory being foggy, it came from the movie having to hold back from the start. In the early 1990s, Mortal Kombat was more than just a hit. It was at the center of discussions in the US Congress about violence in video games. The violent deaths in the game were a direct inspiration for the ESRB rating system. In that environment, it was nearly impossible to make a Mortal Kombat movie that was true to the game in terms of blood and gore. This was very clear to New Line Cinema. People under 21 who are big fans of the game would not be able to see the movie if it got A or grade. The outcome was a life or death choice PG-13, which meant that there had to be less blood, fewer deaths, and violence had to be hinted at instead of shown. As a result, Mortal Kombat turned into a paradox, a movie based on the most violent game of the decade that had to hold back just to stay alive. 7. There is a lot of blood and politics behind Mortal Kombat. Sometimes what you don't see on screen is more powerful than what you do see. When it came to Mortal Kombat, the real fight wasn't just between Earthrealm and Outworld. It was also between the movie makers and the American system of censorship. Every fight scene was carefully looked over to see where the blood showed up. How much was too much? From which views a blow looked too real? Some scenes were totally filmed and edited, but they were cut or changed right before the movie came out because of worries about how the public and the media would react. It wasn't because the movie was too violent, but because the US was very sensitive to anything dangerous involving children at the time. The funny thing is that taking out the blood is exactly what made Mortal Kombat more popular. Kids were allowed in the theaters. Parents agreed with it. The box office blew up. Fans who paid close attention could still feel the violence below the surface through the sound design, how the characters reacted, and how the camera purposely avoided the ending. The game Mortal Kombat won a fight. Not many people noticed. Politics and censorship could kill a whole series by slipping through a small hole, but this one made it through. Just wide enough to not get squished. 6. Reptile wasn't in the script. When Liu Kang walks into a darkroom in Mortal Kombat in 1995, the scene almost made people lean forward in their seats. A flash of green light, and all of a sudden, a strange creature charges at him, charging quickly and wild, unlike any other enemy he has faced before. Reptile makes it look like the movie has suddenly gone in a completely different way. That's exactly what took place. The word reptile wasn't in the original writing. People told the writers that the movie needed one more fight and a really shocking moment for game fans, so they added the character very late. There wasn't enough time to properly plan or prepare. Everything was quickly put together using things that were on hand. One more movement shot in a ninja outfit that was used before. And Reptile's change was made with very few effects compared to what's possible today. But the sense of urgency made it seem like there was real danger. An enemy that shows up out of the blue, attacks quickly, is dealt with quickly, and then goes away. It was always a secret who Reptile was in the games. In real life, he was born in a similar way, a secret made up out of fear that became one of the most remembered parts of Mortal Kombat. Things that are made out of fear can last longer than things that are carefully planned. 5. Don't get scared when Liu Kang is slammed onto the stone floor or when Sonya Blade falls so hard that it looks like she can't get back up right away. The fights were real. It wasn't just playing that made me feel that way. A lot of the hits, falls, and kicks in Mortal Kombat were real. Action movies still used a lot of real-life martial arts and stunt work in the mid-1990s. No CGI was used to soften the moves, and there was no motion capture to fix the posture. They really hit the ground when they were thrown to it. They felt the force of the kick even after it was over. Robin Shou Liu Kang got hurt while filming intense fight scenes, and Bridget Wilson's character Sonya Blade kept working even after her shoulder dislocated. Bumps and accidents were common during long days of filming on hard stone floors, slick arenas, and in bad weather. These were turned into smooth, clean, high-energy action scenes that were shown on screen. It was a movie where the players paid with their own bodies, though, behind the camera. That might be why people still feel something real when they watch those fights again and again, not because the effects were so good, but because the pain was real. For, there was a famous techno track that almost didn't exist. If you were in a movie theater in 1995 and heard the words Mortal Kombat explode from a black screen, your heart probably started beating fast before the first fight even started. That wasn't just background music, the whole theater felt energized at that moment. The sound told you right away that something very different was going on. But not many people know that this famous dance track almost wasn't used. At first, Mortal Kombat was supposed to have a more traditional movie score with a lot of known fantasy martial arts sounds. Techno was seen as too loud, too modern, and most of all, too risky for a video game version that was already looked down upon. The Immortals had to fight to keep that clean electronic spirit alive as a composer. And the crowd responded almost right away when the track was tested during internal screenings. The energy went up, the mood changed, and within the first few seconds, you could tell that this was Mortal Kombat. You already know what will happen. The Mortal Kombat album sold over 1 million copies. The Billboard charts blasted through MTV arcades, bedrooms, and car stereos turned all the way up on roads in the 1990s. The movie's soul was a song that almost didn't make it. It may be the first thing that comes to mind before you remember any of the characters. 3. The public loved it, but critics didn't. Have you ever watched Mortal Kombat again after a long time and started laughing right away, even though you knew the movie wasn't very good? You are not the only one if that's the case. As soon as Mortal Kombat came out, reviewers called it a B-movie because it had a simple plot, blunt dialogue, a loud style, and didn't try to hide how silly it was. but that's exactly what people liked about it. Mortal Kombat has never tried to be better than it was. When you walked into the theater in 1995, it was like seeing characters from video games come to life. You could feel the dance music hitting you in the chest and see real people, not computers, kick and punch. While critics gave the movie scores based on normal movie criteria, audiences scored it based on what they remembered. When they saw Scorpion shoot his chain for the first time. When they heard that shout for the first time. When they first saw it, they thought, this is the game I play every day? The only thing that needed to be done was to remember that Mortal Kombat was a great movie. And over time, that gap made the movie a cult favorite. Not because it was perfect, but because it became so important to an age of viewers that they couldn't live without it. People who can still turn up the music, remember the lines by heart, and laugh at a movie that was laughed at the time but is never forgotten. 2. A big hit at the box office. It was a big surprise when game movies didn't do well. Put yourself back in the year 1995. At that time, the term video game adaptation almost always meant something bad. Super Mario Bros. Fell apart in a big way. Double Dragon was never seen again. Street Fighter made money, but it was also made fun of all the time. No one went into the movie theater thinking that Mortal Kombat would be different. Then something strange happened. Mortal Kombat got off to a great start right away and quickly became the biggest movie in North America. It made over $120 million internationally, which is many times its production budget. It was a straight punch to every Hollywood idea that the movie would be bad. That wasn't the only thing that shocked people. But in what they say. People who watched the games wanted them to be treated with respect. They wanted real players, real martial arts, and the spirit of the original to be kept. There was no attempt by Mortal Kombat to improve or gain praise from critics. It was good at one thing. In the most direct way possible, it brought the game to the screen. At a time when video game movies were thought to be doomed to fail, Mortal Kombat showed that failure was not always a given. And that movie's success at the box office opened a door that Hollywood had never been brave enough to touch before. 1. It's hard to call Mortal Kombat 1995 a great movie now that we look back at it. It began a whole series of movies. It's rough in some places. I don't always like the conversation, and it's not very good at being subtle. But it's exactly that roughness that many people still remember so well about sitting in a theater that year. The techno music was blaring, the dragon logo showed up, and everyone in the room held their breath for the famous shout. Mortal Kombat never tried to be high art. Instead, it stayed true to how the game felt, simple, straight, violent enough, and full of energy. The movie knew what it was and didn't ask for permission to be that way. At a time when Hollywood was still trying to figure out how to adapt video games, that approach, imperfect but true to the spirit, became its strengths. Because Mortal Kombat was so popular, it made a whole new path possible. There have been sequels, animation movies, TV shows, novelizations, and more than one reboot. After that first strike in 1995, all of the other strikes can be traced back to that one. It also showed that video games could work on the big screen if they were taken seriously and didn't need to be improved or changed in any way. To make critics happy. In light of this, Mortal Kombat 1995 may not be perfect, but it is a basic game. A movie that dared to go into the ring when everyone else thought video game pictures would fail. And that first blow helped a whole franchise stay alive, grow, and keep shouting its famous war cry for decades to come. What about you? What is your favorite memory from Mortal Kombat 1995? Write something. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on alerts if you want to keep getting past scenes and stories that were never shown in Hollywood. There may be things Hollywood has kept from you for decades that will surprise you.